Right. What's going on? Nothing started. No. Guess not. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Crown Sterling Ask Me Anything. I'm joined here also with Naomi Matthews, who works on our team. She's a research mathematician. And also Talal Guanam. And Talal, if you could unmute yourself and turn on your camera, that'd be great if you can hear us, okay? But while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and unmute yourself too, Talal. And my name is Robert Grant. I'm the CEO and founder of Crown Sterling. And today's Ask Me Anything is kind of following on to a meeting that we had with our token holders a few days ago. It went very, very well, where we kind of talked through a bunch of things, and we told them also that we would answer more questions. And so those of you that participated in sending us questions, we're really grateful. Fantastic. We've got some really great questions here. I think it's going to be an entertaining discussion and informative discussion. I'll let Talal introduce himself. Talal, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Talal Gannam. I'm a physicist and data scientist. I've been working in the company for the past 3 years. I also co-author with Robert in his book Philomath. I work with numbers and digital root, and nice meeting you all.
Absolutely. And Naomi, go ahead, say hi.
So hi, I'm working as a research mathematician at Crown Sterling. I graduated a couple months ago from UCR, and I'm super excited to be here with the team.
Awesome. Great to have you here. And Naomi is a really, really strong mathematician, and she's done a great job in getting us, a lot of research work done as well. So we're excited to have her on the team. And she's also the one who's been handling a lot of the questions and stuff that come up related to mathematics on Discord and other places. So she graduated in mathematics. We're really pleased to have her on our team. So we have a number of questions here. And the first question I see here is, what companies, industries do I see Seesaw complementing? Okay, so I would say that we've built this one-time pad encryption. And Talal, you can go ahead and go back on mute if you like. And you could stay on there, but if I want you to answer a question or something, or I want to pitch it off to you, I'll go ahead and say it. So basically, we built one-time pad encryption in a way that is now usable and practical. I mean, one-time pad encryption is already very well known. It's well known all over the world as being theoretically perfect secrecy, but there's two major challenges related to it. How do you make sure that the keys are never used twice, A, and B, how do you deal with management of keys that are very, very long? Because one-time pad encryption allows for, each character has to be individually encrypted. It's also already recognized as quantum resistant. So as long as you follow the principles of one-time pad and the requirements, then you can basically achieve perfect secrecy, and you can achieve quantum resistance. And so what we did is we decided to modify what was already well proven, tried and true as a fantastic encryption model, and modify it such that it could be practical for everyday computer usage and everything. And one of those things that we had to tackle was the length of the keys. And so the length of keys was a major challenge because no one had really had to deal with that one before, and had figured out how to deal with it before. And we had to do it also in a way that could obfuscate anyone being able to sort of ascertain values. And so we created sort of two dimensions of this. It was like an X and Y axis. So a square root value of a number that is a non-perfect square number will always be infinite. So it goes on forever and ever. And the thing that's interesting about it, though, is that there's no repeating patterns or no repeating decimals. It's not like a periodic number that has the same numbers repeating over and over and over again, like the 6 digits in 1/7, for example. So it's 0.142857, and then 142857, then 142857 over and over again. So for square root values that are non-perfect squares, there are no such patterns that repeat. There's lots of mathematical evidence and proof of that already written in academia and kind of very well understood. It's the nature of irrationality. Now, some might say, well, wait a minute. If you know that the square root number is a particular square root number, then couldn't you ascertain what the next digits would be? Well, yes, of course. That's kind of like an obvious duh statement, because basically you need to recognize that the key has two components. The private key has two components. One component is the non-perfect square root number, or non-perfect square number, the NPSN as we call it, and the other is the index, or the starting position, which could be anywhere inside that mantissa. Mantissa is just another name for decimal extension. When you have those two things, and they're sent separately as well, basically you could never be able to predict the next digits, right? It's an impossibility to predict the next digits unless you had both of those numbers, and both of those numbers are the two separate parts of the partial key that we've created to make a safe and secure public key transport around this. This is very innovative. It was based on simple principles, though, and we had to also develop the ability to get high precision with digit strings going very, very far out. So we have the level of precision that goes all the way out to 2.1742 billion bits of decimal digit precision on any calculation, which is super rare. Now, of course, I've shown the BFN calculator before on social media, but that version only shows 301,000 digits. This is a different version that we have that goes all the way out to this, this high number. So basically, we see this as being the only kind of quantum resistant, information theory based kind of encryption, and it should be the basis upon which all encryption is going to be used going forward on all blockchains. So we want to complement all other blockchain companies, because quantum computing, with its quantum superposition of X, which now the Chinese have already announced, their research institutions have achieved quantum supremacy. We have a number of companies here in the United States that have quantum computers as well. And we believe that every company could benefit, and their blockchain could definitely benefit from using our unique quantum resistant one-time pad encryption that is now made practical, and the key storage of which is now very easy because it can be collapsed. This two-part key, one side of it can be collapsed into its square function, which then allows it to be much shorter. And you can basically use, within one key, you could ostensibly have an infinite number of keys as well, because you could have different starting positions. It's never the same key series twice. And we used AI to be able to achieve that, or what we call supervised machine learning, and a gradient descent function. And that function is called output by our Zeno operation, which is part of our white paper. So we are building bridge relationships now for cross-chain, so that every blockchain will be able to switch over, when they feel it's necessary, to a quantum resistant encryption and have it be easily implemented. And so that means that, once we have the bridging work completed, then any Polkadot chain would be able to use our encryption for its pay to one-time pad, right? Instead of pay to PK, which is today when you send addresses, money via your wallets, you're sending it to a pay to, or P2 PKH. That's what the addresses are called. Pay to public key hash, right? And so that's the way it works today. But with our platform, you'll be sending it to a pay to, or P2 OTP K address. And you'll be able to have that choice. So the first of the blockchains that will be able to do this will be those that are on Polkadot. The next will be Ethereum. And then all the other chains that decide that they would like to do that will also be able to do it when we've completed all of the bridging effort to do that. And then in order for them to use our encryption as an encryption layer that's quantum resistant, then they will simply have to stake our token. They'll have to purchase tokens to be able to purchase the actual transaction usage for each of their encrypted messages, or for their state transition functions on their blockchains. We have patented also the use of one-time pad on top of blockchain technology. So we're very excited about this. We have many other new technologies that come on top of that, even versions of this that are homomorphic, use of one-time pad on blockchain, which one of the questions later on is about elections. But we definitely see this as being something that could go very, very widespread. And with new advances also in compression, some of which we're leading the effort on here, and a mathematical-based compression, then we see just a tremendous future where one-time pad really should be a standard for encryption usage on all blockchains. The next question, when will Seesaw be listed on new exchanges? So we already have several exchanges that are already kind of set up with us and have contracts with them. So the next that you're going to see is HitBTC. It's a good ex-US exchange. It's an excellent one with a pretty significant volume. I'd say it's a mid-tier player. We also have another exchange, bQuant, which is great for institutions. So there's a lot of institutional ownership that goes on bQuant in particular. ChangeLly and ChangeLly Pro will be right after that. And as far as US exchanges go, I had a meeting with a major US exchange on Friday. And I can tell you that we got a whole package of stuff that is asking us to complete it because, they'd like to have us listed in just a few weeks. So, but I don't want to promise that just yet because I know there's a lot of things that come along with this, but we've already gotten used to kind of dealing with and creating data rooms, et cetera, for these exchanges to be able to perform their listings of us. But I would say in the first quarter, we will be on a US exchange. I'm very confident that that will be the case. And it'll be a major US exchange. Would the Seesaw in our Crown Sterling wallet app be vulnerable to key cracks, or is that database secured with one-time pad? So the current version of the wallet is not secured with one-time pad as yet. It is secured with elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman 512-bit, which is the largest that anyone is using for elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman encryption protocols. But what we did do that is very unique and different is took into consideration quantum computing for that. And eventually, yes, and you'll see it in sometime in 2022, the wallets will also be all protected by one-time pad, and the state transition function is also going to be protected by one-time pad. Now, that means that wherever your coin goes, it's like welded to that wallet, because unless you can access the key to transfer data from one place to another, everyone thinks about wallets as being where you house your coins. It's not really that. It's really more like it's assigned from the original blockchain to a location that has a public key address, right? That's the P2PKH address that I was talking about earlier. And if you can crack that public key, right, cryptography, then basically you could get into that and then redirect that coin somewhere else. So we will have one-time pad that will be on top of our blockchain altogether. So you don't even need to have a one-time pad protection around your wallet per se, because the token itself is encrypted so that no state transition functions can be made unless you know the private keys. So even if someone were to break into a public key protected wallet, they could take out the Bitcoin, they could take out the other cryptocurrencies. They would not be able to take out the Seesaw as it's protected by its one-time pad state transition function that we call Crown Sovereign OTP. So wherever that coin goes, it's quantum resistant. It doesn't matter what wallet it's in. So that's an important thing to realize. The other thing on our current wallet platform, the use of 512-bit elliptic curve encryption that is slightly different than what you would see in all other forms is our random number generator generates irrational numbers, not prime numbers. So because it generates irrational numbers, those numbers that are used in the elliptic curve for public key transport in today's wallet are not subject to factorization because irrational numbers cannot be factored. Why is that? Well, because irrational numbers cannot be expressed as fractions. And in order to factor something, you have to be able to express it as a fraction. Our numbers cannot be expressed as fractions. And Shor's algorithm, which is the algorithm used for integer factorization, that's the algorithm used for integer factorization using quantum computers. Integers are different than irrational numbers. Irrational numbers are not integers. So we modified our elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman encryption by doing it very surgically. We took out, we liked the key exchange protocol. It's all great. The challenge is not really the key exchange protocol. It was really the types of numbers being used in the form of, its encryption, which is always prime integers, because everyone believes prime numbers are random. Well, we've proven they're not random. They're not even close to random. And also what's even more importantly, as you get further out in the number series, the number of prime numbers becomes smaller and smaller as a percentage of the overall pool of numbers. So that means that you're more bound to get collisions from your random number generator when you're fixing a certain key length size, like 1024-bit, 2 1024-bit private keys to make one public key that's 2048-bit. There's only so many prime numbers, right? We decided to go with irrational numbers that work on the basis of non-perfect square numbers, which is almost in direct opposite relationship to the number of prime numbers in the number series. So you don't run into this chance of collision. We also have an AI that ensures we don't ever run into a chance of collision. And collision is a big problem with current random number generators that are used on blockchain and used everywhere. So basically, by using irrational values rather than using these values that are tethered or anchored to prime numbers, we are not subject to integer factorization in the same way. Now, having said that, we still use AES encryption, and there's a group that is in Switzerland that seems to be pretty on the ball called Terra Quantum AG, and they claim that they reversed or inversed the hash function of AES last January. That's the advanced encryption standard. Now, that one is subject more to some controversy because not everyone believes necessarily that that's possible to inverse a hash function on an AES encryption, or what's called SHA-256. But it is still a mathematical equation. And quantum computers, and I'll say this, the Chinese announcement that went out, and I find it very fishy, that I used to Google all the time, how long does it take to factor a 2048-bit public key encryption? And it used to always say 300 trillion years. And I don't know if you knew this, Naomi, but that just got revised to 6.48 quadrillion years now. And then last week, it was listed as 648 quintillion years. So who's changing this? Which is really funny, because how exactly could you go back and test that? To me, it's a complete fraud. And the reason why they're saying this is because the Chinese research team performed in 4.2 hours a complex mathematical crack that should have taken, and I ran the numbers on this. I wanted to see, okay, because in one place it said it took 4.2 hours, but it was 10 to the 23rd times faster than anything else. Well, that means that they were cracking a key that would have been in the quintillion years. So not a surprise that somebody from the cryptography industry said, oh shit, we better change this now from 300 trillion years to quintillion years. It's a total fraud. It's like what's going on right now with COVID. I'm sorry. It's like, this is like, what do they say? What was it? The anagram or amblygram of Omicron is, moronic. But anyway, the point is this, that today the Chinese have already announced that they can crack the largest of our public keys, right? Which is 2048. And people use 4096-bit really only at the sort of like state secret level. That's kind of the highest level encryption there is. You could say, and they did that with only 60 qubits. And I read the paper, and their paper was excellent, and it was not made up. There's no way it was made up. So the cryptography industry is the one making stuff up right now. And I think they've got a history of that, candidly. I'm sad to say, but I think everyone's sort of like believing this, which is like total bunk. So would the Seesaw in our Crown Sterling wallet be vulnerable? The answer is no. We don't believe it's at all vulnerable. And as we implement our Crown Sovereign OTP, which is our state transition function on the blockchain, it'll be on top of that even more impossibly, invulnerable to any kind of crack, because information theory, and I want to differentiate information theory. So information theory is not number theory. It's not a mathematical equation that you can use a quantum, superposition of X to be able to morph into, right? It's just not that way. So the amount of brute force effort that has to go into it is literally inconceivable to our minds. In addition to that, the way we've broken it up by having these two vectors, right, on top of these square root values, if you only knew the starting point and you didn't have the NPSN, you're screwed. You'd have to test every single and possible NPSN, which is virtually every number, because the number of NPSNs in a number set, to contrast prime number usage, the number of primes in the first 100 integers is 25. The number of primes in the first 1,000 integers is 168. The number of primes in the first billion integers is 51 million. But the number of non-perfect square values in the first billion integers is 99.997% of the entire number series. So it's like 997 plus million, right? So you've got that much more usage, and each one of those creates an infinite number string through its square root value. So if all you had was the index, the starting position, you'd have to test every single possible number, which is an impossibility. If all you had was the NPSN and you didn't have the index, you'd have the same problem. It's just a problem in reverse, right? So this is people that would say it's predictable is like, good luck. There's no way. That's just kind of another joke. So anything you'd like to add to that, Naomi?
Just like the possible, so since there's no repetition within the mantises of NPSNs, all the possible number series, you have so many different because of that, no repetition. So that's what makes it, so difficult to like locate exactly what the number series will be.
Yeah. And plus, because of the nature of one-time pad also, I think this is an important thing to note. The only way that you could actually perform the test, you can't like perform part of it and see if it works, right? You have to actually perform the entire XOR function and then read the message and see if it makes sense on every single. So like if you didn't have the NPSN, if you had the NPSN and you didn't have the starting position, you'd have to start within that mantissa, starting from the first digit, then start from the second digit, then start from the third, and test the entire string to see if the message comes out readable, right? The amount of discrete logarithm tied to that is, quite frankly, beyond insanity, right? And there's no limit as to what size numbers we use, because you've got these super long mantissas. So, and then that combined with, different compression techniques makes this very, very exciting indeed. Would you comment on trading from the wallet? Is FMFW still the only viable exchange? I think I answered that question already. So, we're going to be on several exchanges. I'd say we'll probably be on 20, hopefully on 20 by the end of 2022. That's kind of our goal. And we're going to be on a US exchange in the first quarter. So could you develop a secure blockchain for elections? Actually, we did file patents on this. And I want to say this, we don't file patents so that we can block other people from using the technologies. I guess I have more of an open mentality to this type of thing. I don't necessarily believe in blocking people. I'd be happy to come to good terms with other companies and people, or even in some cases making those patents completely available at no cost to in certain circumstances. One of the things that I think is very important is that you have to file those patents so that someone can't block you from using your own ideas. So we file patents a lot. I just filed 3 more this weekend. And I can say this, and those are all on novel compression techniques, which I'm beyond excited about. So basically, we also filed patents not too long ago on the use of homomorphic one-time pad on a blockchain specifically for elections. Because we believe that eventually elections should be managed on a quantum resistant platform that is driven by the very best encryption known to man, which is one-time pad. And in addition, we think that democracy depends on it. In fact, I believe that blockchain should be a model for a new governance model, one that doesn't require so many, quite frankly, borders, that doesn't require so much control and allows for greater trust in a trustless architecture. You don't have to trust it for it to work. That's why you trust it, right? So I fundamentally believe that we have a lot of redundancy in government, and I see blockchain as a new method of governance without the need for more governance. And I look at Strathspey. One of the things I'm thinking about right now too, Strathspey being one of my other company groups that I have like 16 companies in, is how to implement a blockchain governance model so that I'm less necessary, right? So I don't have to be that involved, because eventually that's where everything should go. I think everything should be moving towards decentralized and distributed versus centralized control mechanisms. Maybe that's just the beyond libertarian in me. But I just don't think that things should be left to the subject of, one person's whim. I've just never believed that, and not even my own. So yes, we would develop a secure blockchain for elections. We've gone as far as patenting it also. When would you anticipate coming out with a mobile wallet? So the mobile wallet is already out now for some people that already have tokens and who are our token holders. If you would like to get our wallet, please let us know. We'll arrange for it to get to you. We are in limited release right now. We're going to be expanding that release to include a larger swath of people, and there'll be an incentive for the first 10,000 people. We're going to be giving out Seesaw. About 100 Seesaw is going to go out to each person who participates in it as they are using it for messaging and things like this. And we have certain things we'd ask that people do in order to earn those free, potentially, at no cost Seesaw, but sort of like sweat equity in a way, if you could think of it that way. And we're excited that we're going to be rolling that out in the month of January. So just stay on the lookout for that. And if you'd like to be in that earlier group of this expanded rollout, then just let us know, and we'll send you the links and stuff so you can download the wallet today. Okay, will we be minting? Will there be a, let's see, are we making NFTs on a different blockchain, or could we mint on it? Seesaw. Okay. So minting, for those of you that don't know, just simply means that it's like creation of money, right? So when you mint a coin, you mint a coin. So the term is now gone and extended into NFTs. So I'm very happy to say that by the third quarter of this next year, 2022, on our roadmap, which we will also at some stage make available on our website, et cetera, for people. If you are a token holder now, you can also ask to get access to our last token holders meeting, which we went through the entire roadmap as well. It was extremely well received. But basically, we plan to have in the third quarter the launch of our NFT platforms. So that means that it'll be usable on all of our platforms. So very soon, we're going to be launching the wallet on our iPhone version. The desktop version is already in limited release. The iPhone version is going to be going out over the course of the next month or so in the first quarter. In addition, about 3 to 4 months after that, you'll see an Android version that's going to get released. And you'll see, in addition to mail at the bottom of the app and messaging, right? So messaging and wallet, which are the two features within it right now. Think of it as almost like a Venmo with crypto, and also have messaging associated with it, but encrypted messaging, very, very secure platform for messaging. In addition to that, we're going to be adding in a category called collectibles, and collectibles is for NFTs. So when this platform is released with collectibles as a capability, then that means that you'll be able to make an NFT on your iPhone. How cool is that? You can basically mint an NFT on your iPhone, and it could be any digital file. And eventually, we really want to deliver on the data sovereignty promise. And so one of the things that we'll also be working towards in late 2022 and early 2023 is how you can choose to collect your data for things like your search engine results, right? Also things like your geolocation and your purchase history. The app will eventually be able to collect this data for you and put it in a file format that can be NFT'd and sold on an exchange, which also we're planning to build this exchange. You'll be able to use our NFTs and sell our NFTs on any kind of exchanges, but we also plan to launch our own. So very excited about that as well. So the idea that we'll be able to mint NFTs on my iPhone or an Android, that's really cool, and very excited about it. And of course, be able to take advantage of our core technology and super strong encryption is another big plus. What is our daily volume now, and how are we going to increase? So our daily volume on one exchange. So first of all, part of increasing volume is going to be on getting onto other exchanges. I just mentioned HitBTC, which has about a similar volume to FMFW, which used to be called Bitcoin.com. And Bquant also is in a similar range of volume. Then the other exchanges that we've already got contracts with, ChangeLE and ChangeLE Pro, they both also have similar levels of volume. We're in late stage talks now with a couple of US exchanges, one of which is very large, and another one that we'll soon be talking with is also very, very large. So these two platforms have very high volume. And we're very excited that in both cases, we've been in contact with the senior leadership of the companies, and they're keen to get us on their platform. So that's very exciting. Simply by getting listed in the US, you're going to see a major jump in volume. Because right now, all of the US customers that want to buy Seesaw have a very difficult time because they have to go to a foreign market. And if they're American, they're not allowed to, because it's there's something called a know your customer requirement, KYC, and anti-money laundering requirement. So you can't go onto those exchanges. They have a wall that will block you as an American from going on those exchanges. Because we have so many followers on our 3 different pages, which are my page, Robert Edward Grant, plus now our Crown Sterling pages, which are just growing in their followership, as well as Light is Consciousness and the other page, Geometra Sagrada. We have about 2 million total followers, so our reach is pretty high. And surprisingly, I just went to this conference in Monaco. I was shocked when I went to the conference, and I was at a cocktail reception, and I didn't really know anybody because I'm new to this industry, but virtually everybody there came up to me and said hello, and they had known me because they've been following, the stuff I've been posting on social media on one of those 3 pages for the last several years. So somehow it was lucky that it was a good overlap in that industry field. There are tens of thousands of people that once this gets listed on the US exchange, believe me, I get emails and text messages about this every freaking day. So there's nothing more urgent to us than getting listed on the US exchanges. And once we're listed on a US exchange, and we no longer have to limit purchase of tokens to private purchases that are subject to a 1-year lockup, and we no longer have to subject that also to only those who are millionaires or more, which I hate that rule, but I mean, it just is what it is. This is what we call the accredited investor rule. Basically, we know that there are tens of thousands, if not maybe even hundreds of thousands of people that are keen to purchase Seesaw as it becomes available. You're going to see a huge jump in volume. So today our volume is limited because we're only on one exchange, but the amount of volume that's trading, you can watch it. You just go to fmfw.io. Some days it's trading quite a lot, several hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some days it's tens of thousands of dollars, or 50,000, or like a Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoin or something in that range. It just depends on what's happening in that day. And our tokens performed pretty well so far. We launched it at 6 cents, and it immediately jumped up. It got as high as 17 cents, and then with the recent pullback, it's been hovering in the high 13 cent range with the major drop that's occurred in Bitcoin as well, which also we see as temporary because that's something that happens every year this time of year, it seems. It's usually tied to whenever Janet Yellen decides to say a few comments, right, about something. So So, she basically really drilled on Tether recently and pointed towards new regulations, because obviously the U.S. government's concerned that, maybe there's a new governance model sitting inside of Bitcoin. Okay, so how many Seesaw holders are there now is the question I got. Also, I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. There's quite a lot. I will say this, that the major holders are all very, very wealthy, and we be considered like whales. I do not plan to sell my tokens at all, like not even close. The closest thing I will do, and we're going to do a partnership with a cool company called Unbanked to create a Crown Sterling like black card that will act as a debit account for when you want to purchase things. What we really want the most is people to use it for their everyday purchases, right? And anywhere that takes Visa will be able to take this card in the United States. So you don't have to worry about someone accepting crypto or not. Behind the scenes, Unbanked, and these types of relationships basically sells your Seesaw like it's a debit account, but these are generally smaller transaction types that are kind of perfect for this. So it doesn't really move at all the price. So instead of selling Seesaw, I may use some of my Seesaw to purchase like groceries and stuff like that. But I don't plan on selling it to gain liquidity for something that's already liquid. That's where the world is going. And in particular, when you've got, a Visa card that can do that, then why would you ever sell your Seesaw to get liquidity when you've got like equity style, high returns also possible? Let's see, next question. Okay. Shorter keys violate Shannon's famous bad news proof. What you have isn't OTP, but a stream cipher with non-cryptographic. That's not correct. A stream cipher has repeating digits in it. Ours is not a repeating digit stream cipher. And I'll also let Naomi and also Talal answer this question. We've answered it already, and it's in the white paper, which you can read. There are no repeating patterns and no repeating digits inside of our square root values and the index values. And the index value is also issued by the random number generator, right? So unless you have both, you can't basically get anything. So Naomi, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so we actually saw that the mantisas of non-perfect square numbers performed really well on various statistical randomness tests. We tested it against the ENT testing, we did die harder testing, and it definitely performed very well. So the fact that it doesn't, produce repeating strings, that basically is what differentiates it from a stream cipher. And also, the keys are as long as the data being encrypted. So that's another thing that wouldn't happen with the stream cipher. Anything you'd like to add, Talal?
I'm not sure. I mean, well, just what you said. It's irrational numbers are proven that they'll not repeat, no matter how long you go on the mantissa. So the main requirement of OTP is that the key is rational. It does not repeat. And that's met by the square root of non-perfect square numbers. So yeah, it's not close to.
I think lost Talal for a second there. So I think what he's saying is, and then when you combine that as well with the index, and Talal, if you're back, you can go ahead and come back up again. But when you include it with the index, which is also chosen by the random number generator, it's impossible to predict, and there's no repeating digits in it. And generally, you're looking at pretty small keys. I think that's what your question is also related to as well. Stream ciphers are generally much, much smaller type keys. Ours are not. Ours are as long as whatever the data we're sending, and we can even multi-thread to have much, much longer messages be sent as well. And then combining that with a novel, mathematical compression technology, which we've just been filing tons of patents on, we think we'll be able to send any length of message, which is very, very exciting. And of course, the larger the length of the key, the more security it basically has. So, even with the compressions, we don't want the transfers to be so small that, you run into issues with, with small keys and transfer data and this idea of being able to, brute force attack it, right? So we're also taking that into very strong consideration. So, Andrea, do you have another question that's come up? I love that you hosted a token holder call. Thank you. I'm interested in your comments regarding CrowdStrong's plans on releasing compression. Okay, well, basically, geometry itself is a compression. And I don't think we think of it that way. The types of compression we use today, and that's another branch of information theory. So you could say that Crown Sterling is kind of more focused on information theory than on the number theory, although we're really more, we have a lot of kind of like background in number theory work. And that's also what our book has been about. I'm happy to see that Philomath has continued to do really well. But basically, geometry itself is a compression. Within, looking at geometric relationships and ratios of side lengths of right triangles. First of all, you can fill any two-dimensional space with right triangles. And any sides of any type of polyhedra can also be filled with right triangles. There's no open space, right? So you don't have to worry about stacking of spheres and things like this and the overlapping segments and non-overlapping segments. So right triangles already have a ton of information within them. And I see a day that you'll be able to compress data on something like this. And each one of these sides can be broken down into right triangles. Those relationships of the hypotenuse and the height not only define a log of a spiral, which we published a paper on a novel geometric spirals, tied to galaxies that got published at Cornell a few months ago. But secondly, I guess that was only about a month ago. Time flies. Well, it seems like it's flying, but anyway, it's like in some ways it seems like a long time ago. So, but secondly, we see that these ratios of within right triangles could compress literally infinite data. It already does. That's what irrationality does, right? And irrationality, and also looking at prime factorization. Prime factorization can be brought down to a right triangle that has two sides that are whole numbers, whole rational numbers, and one side that's irrational. And it's really just a square root of another number. And then you simply take, C minus A and C plus A are the two prime factors. And every number can be broken down in the same way in right triangles. Published, we wrote a paper called the sum product conjecture, and we've proven that in an unequivocal mathematical proof. So that's a nice thing about math, and lots of people like to talk whatever, but math is just math, right? It's like the numbers just do what the numbers do, and I think that it's very exciting to be able to utilize this idea of geometric compression combined with precision metrology, as well as combined with something that I'm referring to now that relates to equivalency of infinite mantisses, and that allows us to create sort of guideposts to be able to compress a huge amount of data in a lossless compression that would have been unheard of. And so I'm very, very excited about this because I actually did it again over this weekend and was able to compress a ton of data with more than 100x compression. So now taking that to the computer model and being able to apply that is something that's also very exciting. We have a team that all worked at Avamar. So one of our the company that works and does all of our business to business work and is in communication with large government agencies as well as their vendors are all from the compression field. They largely came out of a Dell EMC environment in Avamar, and basically it's exciting to have. I just finished a meeting with two expert compression guys on that team when I was basically walking them through some of this latest work. And what do you think of that?
That was pretty impressive. Pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, it's the idea of a mathematical, not an algorithm that's just sort of deduplicating or taking out the redundancy. There's a mathematical approach. So to me, that becomes a huge thing for one-time pad also, because it means that one-time pad should become a standard for everything, for encryption. And again, we're not trying to, take out any other companies. We simply want to complement other companies. I think that the problem with RSA encryption and the problem with Shor's algorithm and the factoring of integers is something that is really mainly as a result of the types of numbers being used. First of all, prime numbers aren't random. And so you can't generate random numbers with high randomness, so-called random numbers, using primes at all. It's not possible because they're not random. So, and pretty much all random number generators are focused on prime numbers, which just makes no sense to me whatsoever. You want to start with good input. And of course, we use hardware inputs from the heap, the stack, the CPU, the mouse, and the keyboard and all that to go into our random number generator. But in addition to that, we use our AI and our algorithms that you can read all kinds of detail on in our white papers. But I'm very pleased that we achieved such high randomness with these numbers. And these have been tested also by groups that are doing tests for the government and the three-letter agencies. So you know what? It's like lots of these people, I got attacked by a lot of cryptography people. And look, they're not necessarily bad people, although some might be. They did some pretty horrible things. But at the same time, I kind of understand it. It's like they don't necessarily understand this understanding of mathematics, but I highly suggest you read my book. I was very happy to hear that one of the world's top cryptographers, I won't name him, but sent us a message this week and said that he just bought the book, which is great. And everybody would recognize his name. Like literally everybody would recognize his name. So I will say this, that, we wish the best for the cryptography industry, but we stand behind the strength of our mathematics. And the fact that, there are groups that have been working in this field and have been delivering one-time pads for government agencies as well, that have looked at this and said, geez, why didn't we think of this? I think it says a lot. It speaks volumes. So any other questions? Okay. So for those of you, and this is a good point, for those of you, the question is, what ways will there be to stake and earn Seesaw? So one way to stake and earn Seesaw is going to be by becoming a node validator. So we want as many people that want to do it to become node validators. If you'd like to do that, please message us. We'll arrange for it to get set up for you. You'll get a fraction on all transactions that get validated by you. So that's a nice way to do that. Another way is by being in our early groups for testing and using our products, and we'll send out free Seesaw for performing certain things, like sending us messages back and making sure that we're getting good feedback and good information. So it's not really just free. There's sort of a work effort around it, but it's minimal work. Let's put it that way. And then for companies, there is going to be a staking process announced at the level of those companies that want to use our encryption. We'll have a staking process for companies that want to use our encryption. They'll have to buy a certain amount, keep it in their account. And for those of you that are not familiar with the term staking, it means you're basically holding on to a certain amount of tokens, and you're not, it's in your wallet, they're assigned to you, they're not being spent necessarily, they're not going out necessarily. So you look at Polkadot has about 60% of its tokens are staked right now. And we also want to have a high percentage of our tokens staked. There will also be some sort of more minimal requirement, but for establishing your own NFT on our platform, right? You're establishing your own blockchain on our platform. So there are going to be a number of means for staking. And those of you that also get the Crown Sterling Black Card, there's going to be incentives for staking on that too. So, and those will be kind of like interest rate returns, right? That are going to be more attractive. So we're looking at all of this and we're planning to roll all of it out. It's just we got a lot going on. So we haven't announced yet all of these aspects because we want to do it all as sort of like one part of a part of an entire package. Next question. So I have a question on here. Someone says, why do you claim ECDH is secure against Shor's algorithm when Shor also finds a period for a hidden subgroup problem of elliptic curve discrete logarithm breaking ECDH? So first of all, I would say that ECDH as a standard is not going to be, if you use the current approach, the non-modified approach to ECDH, it would be very possible that it could be cracked by a quantum computer. Now, there's a couple of things wrong with the ECDH as it currently sits today. And I'll tell you, one of them I discovered also. Basically, if you put every number into the ECDH, the way the equation works is you're basically taking, what power of, for example, the number 3 would land you on a 17-hour clock in the 12 o'clock position. Okay. So elliptic curve has real challenges related to it. Why? Although it's the standard in the world today, it has real challenges. Number one, it's already been widely believed, I'm not sure that it's been proven necessarily at larger key sizes, to be vulnerable to Shor's algorithm. Basic factorization is slightly different. Factorization is just x times y equals z, right? And so basically working that equation backwards is the foundational effort around RSA encryption. But modular factorization is what we're talking about, using logarithms. But the problem is when you equilibrate, just what we found also with mod 24, when you equilibrate all numbers to mod 24, any power of that number, right, that's prime, which has to be in the elliptic curve, will end up in the same mod when you understand modular spirality and you go away from the parabola usage that is already the standard when looking at elliptic curves. Actually, it's much better expressed in a modular spiral, and it creates a polarity, right, that shifts across like a mirror at both the north-south axis on a quaternion and the horizontal axis. And so that definitely is an issue. So what needed to happen was we needed to change the powers to be irrational values, so that the powers being irrational creates an even distribution across a mod 24 equilibration. And why mod 24? Well, because mod 24 relates to this, the cuboctahedron. It's a vector equilibrium. It's equidistant from the center to each of the vertexes, right? That's vertices. And that's the nature of this. And it's also related to pi. It's 3, 1 adjacent side, 4. And it goes all around like that. So it's basically squares and triangles. And when you equilibrate things to mod 24, there is this weakness that shows up, but not when you change your usage away from prime numbers to irrational. And because irrational numbers cannot be factored because they can't be expressed a priori, right? They cannot be expressed as fractions, then it is not, we believe, in the same way, as vulnerable to the cracking by a quantum computer, because you can't factor irrational values. So you have to derive a different method. But the key exchange protocol is excellent. It's outstanding. It's tried and true. And so we decided to do that prior to launching our one-time pad encryption, which really replaces the AES component. But our one-time pad also replaces the public key transport too, in the same way. Because what we do is we create through different devices, just like all we use with Apple, et cetera. And we send like a message to another device, and you have to look at the key from that other device and then put it into your other device. Through multi-factor authentication, we have innovated a similar type of method as well and implemented it into our white paper that you can see, so that the index goes along with a public key transport with elliptic curve using a power that is irrational value, so not subjected to the same risk, right? And in addition to that, the elliptic curve does not include the NPSN. The NPSN is sent separately, either through the mail. It could even be sent through the mail, or it could be sent entirely, securely, just via a hard drive or some sort of QR code to an alternative device. It depends on what level of security and balance of convenience you want to have. So basically, by separating out those two messages, like I said, it's a partial key delivery of public key cryptography. So it's a partial public key. It's basically how we refer to it internally, how we file patents on it. And that is going to really essentially replace the AES and the current, more limited use of elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman exchange, which doesn't include a partial delivery of the key. Our keys have two parts that you need. The other part is equally important as the key that goes along. So if we send it along with the index, then the NPSN goes entirely separately through either hardwire or through a mail delivery or through a QR code that would be when the secure messaging sort of transmission of data has been established. Okay, rational primes are, according to you, endless and non-repeating, so every possible private key will be in that irrational value. So can you put that up again? I just want to read the question again. So you claim a rational segment is a safe ECDH private value. Okay, so what I'm saying is that by using the exponentiation as an irrational value, what we found is that it gives you a standard distribution in mod 24 or any multiples of 24. It shows up anywhere. It could show up anywhere inside that, right? By using that irrational value. That makes it impossible to use the approach that I was using to basically ascertain, what power of a given number would land you in a different mod configuration. That's also going to be a prime number. That's the way that the current system's set up. Into a particular position, like 12 o'clock on a 17-hour clock. 17 being prime, and 3 to the power of 13, for example. 13 is the prime number that would be the power of 3 that lands you in a 12 o'clock position on mod 17. This is the foundational principle of the elliptic curve. And what we discovered, and most people didn't really understand this, but we published it related to galactic spirals in the paper that got published at Cornell, which is called Novel Geometric Classification of Spirals, right? And we found that all galactic spirals and conch shells and everything actually are not conforming to simple phi ratios or even Euler, the natural logarithm. In fact, it's way off, and there's more than 100 papers published on this topic that basically try to use pitch adjustments to alter the Euler number so that it will fit the certain pitch of certain galactic and hurricane and tornado type spirality. And actually what we found is it's simple polygonal geometry, inverted. And so when you apply that same concept, that you invert a polygonal geometry like an octagon and then an inverted octagon and then another inverted octagon, and it just fractals into the center. When you apply that same concept, it presents I think a significant risk also for elliptic curves, unless they modify. And that's what we've done. And we continue also to modify our elliptic curve. And I believe that it's more than possible to modify the elliptic curve with the types of numbers that go into it and fix it so that it is not vulnerable to Shor's algorithm as well. And that's what we have done. So next question. It's kind of like cancer, right? When you have cancer in a patient, you don't kill the patient, right? You just take out with as little margin as possible the thing that's problematic. And here, the thing that's problematic are the things that are full of patterns, and that's prime numbers. Any use of prime numbers, I think, is not wise, because the pace of discovery around prime numbers today is so rapid that the mystery that has been prime numbers and embodied in the Riemann hypothesis is about to get blown open geometrically. Another question? Let me see if I have any more here. Okay. All right. I think that's basically it. I want to thank everybody for being here with us today. Very much appreciate it. And Talal, if you're there, you might want to just say thanks and goodbye. Can we pull you up real quick? guess not. So I don't see him here. So Naomi, anything you'd like to close with?
Nothing. Is just awesome answering these questions and being here. So yeah.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. It's very interesting, and I love that there's so much interested in this. So much interest in this, because that shows how novel our work actually is, right? I just encourage all the cryptographers, that are around. There are some of the world's top cryptographers now working on this and looking at it who really like it. So I would encourage you to read it, to actually read it instead of just speaking before you actually read and understand it and fully comprehend it. It's never good to assume something, because that just makes an ass out of you and the person you're talking to. So, I highly encourage you to read it and try to understand it. And I will try to answer any questions, and our team will. We have been very forthcoming with it. We published the paper for anyone now to read. Thanks very much. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.